It's a Sunbelt GSU clash. It's Georgia State at Georgia Southern. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. This episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, usually we would wait to do this preview on the day of the game, but I believe we're going to have Shane Metlin on, hopefully, for tomorrow's episode. So we'll talk JMU. So I wanted to be sure to get the preview in of this big matchup. Plus, I mean, some other matchups as well are huge. Two in the West and maybe some more in the East that are big. What happens if ODU beats JMU? I mean, what happens? You know, that would be crazy, but we've seen crazy things throughout this college football season. All right. So, you know, this matchup is really interesting because you have, you know, this is prototypical of what we have today, right? We have a couple of guys that have transferred in, Davis Brin to Georgia Southern for this season, and Darren Granger has been with Georgia State already for a few seasons and has really stepped up his game. I was told by Brady Weiler from Panther Talk that the staff wanted to make sure that Darren Granger was okay at halftime before they brought him back in the game, right? He came out of the game. The backup went in, actually scored a touchdown, but then fumbled right before half. That allowed the Cajuns to get on the board. But they wanted to make sure Darren was okay at halftime, and he was. However, though, didn't really do anything after halftime. So you wonder if he is okay. Hopefully he is, all right? But, I mean, they went from 300 yards of offense to 45 yards of offense. So you're hoping Darren Granger is okay. Davis Brin is susceptible to the interception. 11 interceptions is a lot of interceptions. I mean, you know, even if half of them are in one ball game, right? You threw a couple interceptions at JMU. You threw a couple interceptions against ULM, right? So eventually the whole, well, half of them are in, you know, one ball game. Okay, but now you got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 other ball games where you've thrown an interception, right? Someone complained that I didn't have Grayson McCall in my top 5, and it's not because he's not an all-time great. He's just not having a Grayson McCall year, right? Grayson McCall has like 8 career interceptions entering the season. He's got 6 this year. So whereas 6 is not a whole lot, he's almost equal his entire career output. I understand the whole change of coaches and everything like that, but he's usually much better. He's usually much better at controlling the game than throwing those interceptions. So meanwhile, Davis Brin has had some issues. He throws for a lot of yards. Completion percentage is usually pretty good. Kind of all over the place, actually. You know, he averages almost 67%, but he's had 75, 80, and the last couple of ball games haven't been great, right? JMU, 60%. ULM, up 31-14. They seem to be throwing the ball a lot, 55%. So he has not been, seems to be going in the wrong direction, to be honest with you. Even though their only 2 losses are at Wisconsin and at JMU. So, you know, as poorly as it looks like he's heading down, still, those aren't, you know, nothing to be ashamed about there. Darren Granger and Georgia State, their only loss is at home against Troy, and that was basically a turnover that changed a, you know, potentially 21-14 ball game into a 28-7 ball game. So it doesn't look as close as it could have been. And who knows what happens if it's, you know, 21-14. All right. So Darren Granger has progressively gotten better. He is my number 1 rated quarterback in the Sun Belt as of right now. And that can always change. But he started out at Furman, you know, 48%. The next year at Furman, 49%. Didn't play in the COVID year of 20. Then he gets to Georgia State and he's almost 60%. Same thing in 2022, almost 60%. This year he's completing almost 70% of his passes. That's outstanding. He's got 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. That's fantastic. His rating, which again, I don't understand some of these ratings, 158.3, his career high. Rushing this year, he's already got about half of what he had last year, and he's averaging more yards, about 4.7 yards a carry, 368 yards. He's got 5 touchdowns on the ground to go with his 10 touchdowns in the air. So this is going to be a matchup of 2 very experienced quarterbacks. And again, I haven't gotten many of these games right this year, but it just feels like, again, this game is going to come down to, turnovers, who may have the ball last. It feels like a very, very close matchup. Georgia Southern is favored by 1.5. I'm sure that would be flipped if it was in Atlanta. But the Cajuns were favored by 2.5. I said if that ball game was in Atlanta, I would have taken Georgia State. And, the only reason the Cajuns were in the ball game were turnovers to begin with. And then they turned the ball over to end the ball game when they looked like they could have had a touchdown and won the ball game. So I feel that this is the same thing. I'm going to give a little bit of an edge to Georgia State. They have gone into Coastal Carolina and took care of the Chanticleers. They went into Cajun Field and took care of Louisiana. I think Georgia Southern is really good. We're looking forward to another huge crowd at Paulson. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. This rivalry is nasty, right? It's a rivalry that Georgia State wants it to be a rivalry. Georgia Southern looks down at Georgia State. It is a ferocious rivalry. I think Georgia Southern's, rival is App State, but nonetheless, this has got a lot of implications in the East. It should be a fantastic ball game. It is on ESPN2. Mike Cuse and Vatek are on at the same time, so we'll have to have. Hopefully, it's on in the YouTube on both. You get it in the same box, so hopefully that's pretty cool. But it should be a fantastic ball game. Again, this could go either way. I don't see either team running away from the other outside of multiple turnovers and maybe scores on the turnover, because games can get away very quickly, right? Say, Georgia State gets the ball first, or even whoever gets the ball first scores. The other team throws a pick six, and then, it's up 2 scores, and then, the other team, punts it away after that, and you can go up 3 scores very quickly. So things like that, can skew the way the game goes. Again, I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to take Georgia State like 28-24. It's a flip of a coin for me. But Georgia State has proven that they can go on the road in hostile territory and win a couple of close ball games. We'll see if Darren Granger is okay, and we'll see if Davis Brin throws interceptions, right? Again, this has got turnover ball game written all over it. Who has the ball last? Who can make a clutch defensive play? And again, you got to give it up to Gavin Pringle. I mean, maybe Zion Chris, the only complaint you can do on that is that kind of staring down. Peter LeBlanc didn't even give Neil Johnson a peek. And so Gavin Pringle could, peel off his coverage and made a huge interception for Georgia State. There's losing, and then there's losing a 20-point when you have a 20-point lead almost at half. And Gavin Pringle saved the Panthers. So they're going in there with some momentum. I know Georgia Southern, they blew a big lead and hung on to beat ULM. So both teams actually have some momentum. I'm just going with Georgia State. I just think they're a little bit better. And I think the Panthers come away with, what did I just say, 28-24 victory. I think it's going to be very, very close. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll continue to preview week 8 of the Sun Belt. Let's see where we are here. We are going to tell you about Jase Medical. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared. Unrest in the Middle East, fires in Hawaii, hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida, earthquakes, and more. These can lead to a supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. The Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains at least 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Jase Medical now offers customability for your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications, Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. Jase is continually working to expand the medications offerings. In these recent efforts, they've added Invectramin as an option in the Jase case. Go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, so now we have some huge matchups in the West. All right, and let's do the bigger one because, well, I mean, they're both big, but both these teams are 5-2, so we'll start out there. All right, Texas State barely rebounded against their loss against the Cajuns against ULM, down 20-9. They pulled out a miracle, and Troy they both enjoyed a nice week off, but Troy much more in charge of their ball game. Let's see, who did they play a couple weeks ago? They took care of Army in the rain in upstate New York, 19-0. All right, and this is obviously going to be a very different ball game. They do get a week off to go from the ground attack of Army, who now hasn't scored in 2 weeks, by the way, after getting blanked by LSU, to the air attack of TJ Finley and company. But yet they want to run as well. It's not clear cut that they're just throwing the ball, right? This has got a great matchup. We got, Gunnar Watson, kind of the game manager, but he's done a little bit better this year. 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Finley, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But we have a great running back matchup with Kamani Vidal and Mahdi. Vidal's got 951 yards. He was leading the nation in rushing. Mahdi, 726 yards. He was banged up a little bit in the Cajuns ball game. He's got 8 touchdowns to Vidal's 6. Let's see. I mean, they got to be right up there in the Sun Belt stats. See if we can find those real quick. But they've been, this has got that you usually don't have, some of those big running back matchups anymore, right? Running backs are not nearly as, a bad word is important, but prominent. Not in this case. This case, they are. And that's a lot of fun. All right. Let me see here. Rushing. There we go. Kamani Vidal leads the Sun Belt in rushing with 951 yards. And Mahdi is 5th with 726 yards. Mahdi actually averages more yards per carry, 7.4 to 6.2. It's going to be a great football game. And it is really, it's the offense of Texas State versus the defense of Troy. The reason I picked the Cajuns over Texas State, one, it was at home, and they, that game didn't go any of the way I thought it would. I'm not sure about Texas State's defense. That's the only problem. Texas State is susceptible defensively. Troy's defense is outstanding, right? Troy's defense is, not giving up anything, like less than 300 yards of offense, right? Texas State's defense gives up 410 yards of offense. Troy gives up 281 and 100 yards on the ground. So I'll take Troy in this ball game, 4.5. It'll probably be a touchdown or less. Again, important for TJ Finley and Mahdi not to fumble. Can't give away points to Troy because they'll take advantage of it. All right. And if Gunnar Watson does not, make those mistakes that he is susceptible to making, Troy should win this ball game in San Marcos and basically take control of the West, right? If Texas State wins it, they're not in control of the West because they still have a lost tiebreaker to the Cajuns. The Cajuns are absolutely rooting for Texas State. That's for sure. If Troy wins it, they sort of have control of the West. All right. Also in the West, you do have South Alabama hosting the Cajuns. And again, I don't know what happened with South Alabama this year. We've talked about them a lot. Maybe they figured it out. They're a 10-point spread, favored at home. odd 4:00 ball game. This is on ESPN Plus. Auburn's playing at 2:30. Alabama's off. So usually this would be a perfect 6:00 ball game. So I'm not sure why they didn't move it to 6:00 to be away from Auburn, but whatever the case is, they have figured things out. The Cajuns got to get the offense going again, right? Even against Texas State, they struggled a little bit offensively until the end of the ball game. They certainly struggled against Georgia State, needed a fumble at the end of the first half to prevent getting shut out. So they need to pick it up offensively. South Alabama, they have the Sun Belt's leading rushing touchdown leader in LaDainian Webb. Colin Lacey leads the conference in receiving yards. He's third in the nation. I like South Alabama in this ball game, and I'm a little bit nervous the Cajuns may get blown out. Having said that, the last two matchups have been decided by made or missed field goals and a missed wide open tight end in the end zone. Jake Bentley, a couple of years ago, missing a tight end in the end zone, wide open play, just underthrew him. And I believe Diego Guajardo, who's missed a couple of field goals now this year, he missed as well. That would have tied the ball game up. Remember, that was the 13-1 Raging Cajuns, a couple of years ago. That was the really good Raging Cajuns. Last year, South Alabama was a 10-win team, still needed a Diego Guajardo field goal at the end and a big pitch and catch by Carter Bradley to Jalen Wayne to set that up. So it could be a very close ball game. I am concerned that if the Cajuns, get off to a slow start as they have the last two ball games, they're not going to be able to catch up. It's going to be a problem. South Alabama's defense is susceptible to wide open receivers. We'll see if they can take advantage of that moving forward. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll do the games that are remaining and my picks. So far, who do we got? We got Georgia State, we got Troy, and we got South Alabama. All right. It's time to tell you about FanDuel. Snap into this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Also, let's tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, quickly, going back to FanDuel, remember, NBA started last night as well. So we're going to see if we can get in on that action, as well as, the remaining of college football and the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Checking out the rest of the action. You have a flailing App State team coming home to host Southern Miss. Southern Miss making changes with Will Hall not calling the plays anymore. Joey Aguilar's had a pretty good year for an offense that's been struggling. 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Question is, will Nate Noel be playing for, Joey Aguilar's with App State. Southern Miss is having quarterback issues, that's for sure. Will Nate Noel play? Did not play last week, and they came up short to ODU. Southern Miss has been a mess, right? They got off to good starts defensively, and then their defense disappeared when they played Arkansas State, and then their offense disappeared, and it has not been going in that direction for App State. They just haven't been able to. They've had some tough losses, right? All their losses are like one score, touchdown, or a field goal. They expect more. The line is a lot. 17 is a lot. I think that's being based on, the last ball game with Southern Miss. I'm going to take App State to win. I'm going to take Southern Miss to cover. All right. I'm not sure App State is that kind of team that's winning by 3 scores. Have they done that this year? That's the only thing. They beat Gardner-Webb by a bunch, but everything else, they did beat East Carolina by 15. They got like a 3-point loss to Wyoming. They got a 1-point win against Monroe. They got a 3-point loss to Coastal. They got a 7-point loss to Old Dominion. So we haven't seen App blow anybody out just yet. All right, you got Monroe hosting Arkansas State. Monroe is 2-0. Is Arkansas State's young quarterback for real, or is Monroe's young quarterback for real? We'll see. All right, let's see if these Monroe Warhawks can win a ball game at home against the competition that's basically at the same level. All right, ULM has had some gut punch losses this year. I'm taking Monroe to win and to cover. All right, Coastal Carolina is hosting Marshall. That'll be on the NFL Network. That's 5 p.m. on Saturday Central Time. Coastal Carolina not having Grayson McCall, or at least he was doubtful. So we'll find out. Perhaps we'll find out more before Saturday's ball game. But McCall banged up in that ball game last week. Again, didn't look good at all. Not in concussion protocol. So that's really interesting. Maybe just really sore in his neck area and shoulder. I don't know. But he's not, they're not planning on him playing. Again, that could change. I'm not sure if Marshall can go in there and win. That's the only thing. They have just, I guess if the backup quarterback for Coastal is playing, Marshall is probably, they're favored by 4. That's why. Marshall's favored by 4 because Grayson McCall's probably not going to play. So we're going to take Marshall for that. I reserve the right to change my mind if Grayson McCall does play. And then to wrap things up, you got JMU, a 20-point favorite against ODU. They're at home. James Madison at home. They're really good. They didn't play all that well last week, but their defense was fantastic against Marshall. We'll see what they do against ODU. ODU with a surprise win at home in the Oyster Bowl, which I love that game. I love the name of that game. They're 3-1, and you know who is everybody in the East is rooting for ODU, right? I mean, they are looking for someone to take down James Madison because they don't want to hear about the whole, James Madison can't go to the Sun Belt Championship and yada, yada, yada. At the same time, this ball game is on ESPNU Saturday night at 7 p.m. It's going to be a 3.5-hour commercial on why JMU should be going to a New Year's 6-day bowl. So they're going to look to be impressive. Let me see. Let me quickly see what Old Dominion has done. I don't think they've gotten blown out this year. They really haven't, right? They lost in a big way to Vatech. That was game 1. They beat the Cajuns by 7, lost to Wake by 3, beat A&M. Is that Commerce? Yeah, Commerce by 1. They lost to Marshall by 6. They beat Southern Miss by 4, App State by 7. JMU may be the best team they've played this year, but they just don't get blown out. So I'm actually going to take Old Dominion to cover. All right, JMU wins. I'm going to take Old Dominion to cover. All right, that's our episode for today. We're hoping we get the Daily News Record, Shane Metland, to talk about this whole thing going on with JMU and the NCAA. There are 2 sides of the story, but it is a stupid rule. It's ridiculous on what they're doing, and now the NCAA is making it harder for teams to make that jump from FCS to FBS. All right, so hopefully we'll talk with Shane for tomorrow's episode. And, of course, on Friday, we can recap Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's edition of Locked On Sunbelt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Have a great day, everybody, and we will talk to you tomorrow.